Hey, what's up? This is Benjamin Gottlieb, producer of the Joe Ruggiero Inspired Podcast. Stopping by to tell you today we're going to run a few episodes from last year, some of Joe's favorites. We hope you enjoy.
Today I will be talking to a dear, dear friend. I call her my angel, but she just informed me I'm her angel. But at any rate, Dara Baker is a writer, stylist, photographer with over 2 decades in the publishing industry. 12 years as the West Coast director for the renowned Paris-based international trend forecasting bureau de Style, Promostyle. And she's also the recipient of the prestigious New York Art Directors Award and Western Publishers Association Maggie Awards. Dara has spent years in traveling in Europe and actually lived in Brazil. But let's forget about this. Let's meet Dara Baker. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I have to tell you a story.
Okay.
34 years ago, when I moved out here and became editor-in-chief of Home Magazine, I had a meeting with my staff, and I saw your shining face in that audience, and I thought, this is a gal that's going someplace. And you were a youngster. In your early 20s, right?
Yeah, not even 21. Not even drinking age.
But we sent you on a project that I will never, ever forget, and you did such a beautiful job. And that was American Family Portraits.
Yes.
So can you share any of the stories of that?
Absolutely. I was so lucky to go up to Orcas Island.
Right.
And produce a photo shoot of a woman, Blake Shore, I remember her name, and she owned a great store named Rutabaga, and one of her quotes is still my favorite quote because I got to produce and write the story as well, and she said, "I'm a hopeless collector that's trying to simplify my life."
Many of us fit into that category.
Yes, exactly. So what happened? So it was a huge theater that they turned into their house, and Michael Scott was the photographer. And it was a family that lived in this house, and they had a swing that swung back and forth. And what we did was just take pictures of the way the family lived, because it was your great idea of doing American family portraits. So that was one that was super fun. It ended up being on the cover, or one of the covers, because we tried 2. The other one that was super special was in Star, Texas.
Oh, yes.
And it was just outside of Austin, and I got the warm Texas welcome. And we did the American Gothic remake of all the kids leaning against the brick, holding the pitchfork, and that was with Pamela Barkington Blackburn.
Oh, I still love her.
I love her.
You know, she was a professional model.
Yes.
And her father was one of the biggest fashion photographers going way back, and she posts many of the pictures of that period. So we still communicate. I just adore her.
I do too.
But, you know, you as a stylist, you go into a situation in a photo shoot, you assess the situation, you look at the interior, and then you come up with your ideas, which are so magical. What is the process like?
The process, honestly, it always starts with the writing. I conjure a story there, and Karen can attest to this. Karen Millay, our dear friend and colleague and photographer. So, for example, I'll go into a really boring Beverly Hills hotel room. Right? It's blank. It's nothing. But I have to imagine, okay, it's a British businessman who has kids, and he's here just for a couple days. So then I get to bring the Pink FT, my favorite newspaper still. I get to bring sketches of my kids to put on the desk. And so the story I create informs almost like I'm creating a theater set. And it gives each house or whatever project a sense of true editorial, a real story, instead of staged. We've seen, plenty of that.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I like to do. And then when it's a real family that lives there, I like to get to know the family ahead of time and just kind of amplify how they already use it and, bump it up as far as how to make a beautiful picture. A lot of times it's really just about painting a picture, turning 3D life into 2D. So I usually wipe the slate clean, clear everything out, and then add what I know will make a pretty picture. A lot of times it's greens, just greens, that bring in the outdoors. A lot of times it's something big, a beautiful focal point. But what I try to never do is have the eye lock in somewhere. I want the eye to float around the photo and just kind of absorb the whole room.
Well, now, how did you get in you're a journalism major, right?
Yes. Well, actually, I was a communication major, late 80s. And of course, remember that Melanie Mabron, who I photographed too, that it was a great TV show about the advertising world, where they made a lot of money. And anyway, I thought I wanted to be a big shot advertising executive.
What, like Mary Lawrence? Or something?
Yes, and instead I, at the end, just had so much fun writing and photographing for the school daily newspaper and a lot of actual famous photographers came from that world. Sam Jones was one, and he was a personal friend of mine, and he's a big famous photographer now. I just fell so in love with the journalism angle and creating stories and photographing in black and white and writing the stories, and then I made my money by selling the advertising for the newspaper as well. So I switched kind of my major, and then I was offered this internship at Home Magazine, and even though my internship advisor said, "You're an ad major, you shouldn't be doing this," I said, "Nah, I have a really good feeling about this one."
That's it. You've got to trust your gut.
Yeah, and so my gut, I really pushed. I said, "I'm going for it. I'm still going to go for it," and I'm so glad I did. And I think it just felt so natural because of the way I grew up with my mom. She was always creating, always painting, always decorating,
now, was
always
she a
styling.
Teacher?
No, my mom was an artist, really, first. Like you, she can paint, she can, just draw out of nowhere, and you should see her paintings. They're beautiful, of flowers. So that first, but of course, with parents of the Depression, my grandma came from Scotland, grandfather, without getting too into all that, they wanted her to be sure to make money. So she actually went to dental hygiene school and did that. And then ended up running a dermatology office, and then but always that was just the practical side. The real side of her was an artist. She was just always decorating, really created. You were in our backyard for my wedding.
That gorgeous garden.
All of that I got to watch firsthand her and my dad at the time create a beautiful home and garden out of nothing on a shoestring.
Absolutely. Now, you also spent some time projecting with the Parisian consultancy.
Yes.
What the trends would be, what the colors. How did you go about doing that?
So after Home Magazine was sold, moved to New York, I thought, okay, now what? I ended up working for the surf and outdoor industry, those magazines, as a fashion editor, and I would go to these trend presentations. And I thought, wow, us journalists always sort of think we're ahead of the game and know what's coming because we're invited to all the press previews. But I was so blown away at the interdisciplinary nature of this trend forecasting presentations that this French gentleman by the name of Sébastien de Dijbach and their West Coast person would present. I loved, way back, we're talking, late 80s, they had a book called Influences. And so they would gather information from around the world from all levels of culture. So underground, like skate culture, high culture, museums, and combine all that information to get a feeling of what was coming next. It was never, we had a joke in the trend forecasting, if you've seen it, it's already over. But this is before internet.
Yeah.
So it was very internally motivated instead of like now all we see is like everything is on Instagram and there's not a lot of internal sense of creating something completely original.
Did you go to the collections?
Yes, not the Parisian collections. I would go to Première Vision, the fabric fair, and in a way, it was someone had to make a decision on colors, right? So it was the thread fairs. Someone had to commit to that shade of poppy red versus a berry red. So a lot of times, it's really the fabric that informed a lot of the trends, because everything, my whole territory was the West Coast. So I had wonderful clients, Levi's, Patagonia, Nike, Adidas, the whole West Coast. They had to manufacture 2 years in advance. Right. So we have to tell them, okay, this is the evolution of the colors. The yellows are getting more acidic. And that's the part that I love the most, was seeing the evolution over 20 years of colors. And you can see where they're going. You can feel where they're going. And it's fun to carry that into my work now, where we all have the joke, like, okay, no more orchids in the interiors, or no more. So it's nice to offer something original and different, yes, based on the narrative that I'll create for a project, but also based on, you know what, I'm feeling something about this weird chartreuse shade. Let's throw it in.
Well, Annette Johnson, who was one of the editors that started the color forecast for House and Garden, she showed me once the graph of the colors that would go up and the colors that would go down. And of course, you're too young, but I remember avocado green, and during that period, which influences your appliances, your interiors, your paint colors, your textiles, obviously. And I just find that so fascinating.
It is. It's really fascinating, and it's fun to continue to see that and get hints. I was just at the Hammer Museum with our friend Karen, and of course I had to go throughout, and in the shop there's this brand new color journal, and the first issue, guess what the first issue is, and it's based on one color.
Greens.
Blue.
Oh.
And they dive deep into like where Klein Blue came from. Of course, Klein gets all the credit, but it's actually the guy who made the color.
Right.
He glommed onto it and saw it. So it tells the story of the person who actually made the color. And then another, I'm just giving you a hint of a big color to come. So there's Klein Blue.
Tell me more.
Yeah. So there's the Klein Blue. And then I was just at a salvage company, Pasadena Architectural Salvage, yesterday, and there's another magazine, and guess what the color it devoted itself to?
Blue again?
Blue again, and it's a whole thick magazine on all the different shades of blues, and this is by a fabulous British paint person, Anne something. But it's like those kind of hints.
Well, I basically am a monotone kind of guy.
Yeah.
But I have always loved blue and white.
I remember the all blue story we did. Where it was every wall was a different shade of blue, and there was a lot of periwinkle. I will say periwinkle sounds like an old term, so I don't know what we'll call it now.
Well, blue that goes to the lavender side.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so that a lot of that.
Well, you were so instrumental on the project that we did called Holmes House, and it was really actually a good idea, and I must not take any credit for it. But they came up to me and they said, well, Knapp Publications is going to buy a home, and, you can redo this, and it can be part of, the process and what have you. And then, of course, ABC glommed onto it, and that's where I met Kitty Bartholomew. But we all had such a good time taking this ranch burger, I guess is what it was, and turning it into a fun story. And I always remember your enthusiasm, because in any creative project, it takes that impetus to have happy, peppy people to, help you make something happen. And you did. And what remembrances do you have of that house?
Oh, so many. I mean, well, it's funny, as I was driving here, I thought of, because, you know, I'd like to dress for work. I was an editor, and I'd have to be invited. I remember I had bright red high heels and a red polka dot dress, and you looked at me up and down, and you said, honey, you're going to have to get rid of all this and put your hiking boots on, because this is some down and dirty work. And so, of course, it was down and dirty as far as, like, I'm managing subcontractors.
Right.
I just always loved the cast of characters. We had Sparky, the electrician. We had Rob Steiner, what a talent, the landscape designer.
Right.
That, I mean, how ahead of the times, right? That did xyroscaping or drought
Right,
resistant. And
that's
what was fantastic was there were a lot of species that we wouldn't think are drought resistant that actually were. You wanted your English garden, you wanted your roses, and there are natives that fall under that category, and that's something I'm super into right now is natives. So back to Holmes' house. I mean, a lot of funny stories. Remember, I had my faux painters come?
Oh, yes, which was wonderful.
Yeah, Christine, high school friends that are amazing artists, and
Right.
both have gone on to do amazing things. She's done Man's Chinese Theater.
Wow.
He became very famous, did all the House of Blues. Anyway, having them faux paint the fireplace around. But the biggest claim to fame that you and I love that you're my witness for this, is when we went to source the tile for the kitchen.
Right.
And we're looking for something that has, because our whole aesthetic was, let's turn this into an English cottage. I mean,
Right.
how much more opposite can you be? You know,
Right.
a dry desert landscape to an English cottage,
Right.
which was very late 80s and wonderful at the time. So we're at Ann Sachs Tile and Stone.
Right.
And we're looking around, not really seeing anything that's going to work for the kitchen. And we look down, and I'm like, how about using this beat up travertine? And the guy's like, oh, no, that's a floor tile. And I look at you. You and I look at each other, and we're like, we're going to start something here. And we ended up sealing it and using the travertine floor tile as the countertop, all over. And
Right.
so, and then that became a trend.
Well, that's what happens, you see, when you get a group of creative people. And I always like the idea, like a conductor. You know,
Yes.
you want to go for the best musicians. And I think that I've assembled myself with the best of friends that they've become friends. But when you were first eager to express yourself, I always like to create an arena or an environment. And I always listen and learn from you guys.
Right.
And that's always continued.
And same.
Do you mind if I call you when I have a problem?
Yeah, anytime. I love it.
For some advice.
But I agree. I love listening. That's writing, right? It's
Right.
really listening all around. Listening to those you're interviewing, but also listening maybe quietly to your gut, you know, to then create something different.
Well, now
is
you
listening.
have had a wonderful experience in Brazil.
Yes.
Right. Now, what was that like? And how many years were you there?
I personally, because I had my own business running
Right.
Promo Still, and back to the best. I always love to work for the best, like you, but truly, and Promo Still was the original and the best trend forecasting company, and so I love that because I had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that job. I had to first pass muster with the New Yorkers that came, and they were hilarious because there's some real characters in the
Oh, I
LA
know.
fashion scene, and they're like, frankly, you're kind of just the only normal one. Then I had to fly to New York and pass muster with the Frenchies, and so the French people came, and I had to go out to dinner and know how to use my knife and fork and this and that, and that's where I learned to drink chilled red wine. But I am kind of digressing. So I had that territory. This was after I left the surf and outdoor industry because I was so impressed. They needed a West Coast person, and I just was blown away by this. But then Russ, my husband, Russell, you call him
Right,
Muscles,
okay.
got a great opportunity to run a hydrogen cracking plant in Brazil or fix it. And I was going to go as kind of the freelancer that I am, and kind of run my business from Salvador da Bahia, Brazil. Bahia is a special place. Very African. You know how some colonies are more African than
Yes.
the original?
Right.
That's Bahia. And a special religion that they practiced. It's a combination of Catholicism and voodoo.
Wow.
And
what
it's
a
called
combo.
candomblé. And that's where I had this medicine man, because I was still always shopping, that wouldn't let me buy his beads, because you have to prove yourself that you're worthy of these beads. So, of course, every day I'd walk by and, like, try to act, I don't know, spiritually correct. Finally, he let me buy 4 of these beautiful, I call them magic beads, and only 4 people got them. So, of course, I got one. Lynn von Kirsting later, I gave her a set because she was we bonded over Brazil and
Wow.
kids. My mom, of course, and
Yes.
Karen. Those are the
Wow.
4. But you're asking me how Brazil was. I'm going to be honest, it was tough.
Yeah. Well, the language is tough.
The language is tough, but culturally it was tough. There were a lot of unspoken rules there. So as inspiring and wonderful, I'm going to rose-color lens looking back.
Yeah.
The wonderful part was the music.
Yes.
Ola Doom was a fantastic, and still is a fantastic drum corps of street kids beating on
Wow.
buckets. And when we arrived, and right away I wanted to go to the old part, it's called the Pelourinho. When we arrived, the walls were echoing of these kids drumming. It's called Ola Doom. And guess who was filming their music video there? Michael Jackson was filming They Don't Care About Us. So when you
Wow.
listen to their They Don't Care About, you can hear that special Ola Doom music. And then, so I was addicted. I would go every Tuesday night. They did this sort of Ola Doom blessing. And later, also, Paul Simon did an amazing.
Yes, I remember that.
I'm
Yes.
accustomed to a smooth ride, that
Yes,
song.
yes.
Another great song with Ola Doom. So I'm going to focus on the positives of Brazil. So the music was spectacular.
Food?
Okay, Russ is the adventurous one.
Oh, you're meat and potatoes?
Someone said something that I kind of agree with. I have a palate of a 12-year-old.
If it isn't Scottish, it's crap.
Right. Of course I ate. The reason, Russ is super adventurous, but he also would, not feel so well sometimes
Right.
after his adventurous meals on the street. So yes, I loved it, and yes, I had an appreciation for the spice and the seafood. I really had appreciation for the capiroscas.
Oh,
That's
yes.
the cachaça liquor, but
Right.
I would call it rosca because we would prefer, it's just fresh lime
Oh, yeah.
and vodka.
The caipirinhas.
Caipirinha,
Yes.
I like caparosca because instead of the cachaça, it was the vodka.
Oh, yes.
And we could deal with that. So a lot of expats are there, European expats,
Yeah.
American expats, and the way to get through a day in Brazil, like living there, is you end it with a caparosca.
Caipirinha. Well, I'll tell you
Yeah.
something. My producer's wife
Yeah.
was very sedate, but she did live in Brazil for a while. And we all went to Portugal for HGTV. And she said, oh, we must have a caipirinha. And she said, but be careful of the cachaça. And here was this sedate, wonderful lady that wound up dancing on the tables. So
Yeah.
I guess it's a magical potion. But you had mentioned Lynn von Kirsting.
Yes.
And she is a very special, talented lady.
Yes, a great
And you
talent.
worked there for 7 years.
Quite a few years. What happened was I was still loving promo still. Deborah, another one of your genius collectives.
yes.
Really, you did hire a lot of the best. And honestly, I feel like all of us alum at Home Magazine
Well, I
are...
inherited a lot of the best. I had to go through
Oh,
the
that's
tortures
true.
of the
Oh,
day.
right, you did. Oh, yeah.
But
Okay.
I luckily I wound up with the very, very special people. Yes, you're right. But Lynn, I just want to let our listeners know, is the developer of Indigo Seas,
Yes.
which was her fabulous shop,
The
but
founder,
still is.
owner,
and
yeah.
the Ivy at the beach and Ivy in
Yeah.
Beverly Hills.
Ivy at the Shore. The Ivy,
Right.
on Robertson, Indigo Seas, and Dolce Isola, a charmer. Really, I go there all the time when this is my little routine. I'll get the flowers at the Flower Mart downtown,
Yes.
and normally the shoot's on the west side, so I'll stop and have the most spectacular breakfast at Dolce
yes.
Isola.
Oh, the best.
Down on it's lower by Hamilton High,
Right.
and then go on to my shoot or prepping. But back to Lynn, it's a great story. It's a really good
Yes.
story. So I was doing promo still, doing fine, loving it, out of the editorial racket, as
Right.
we say,
Well,
because I had a child, and I knew what photo shoots were and all that demanded. Deborah was at British Elle Decoration, and she called me out of the blue. She goes, Dara, please, can you please get us some locations? Oh, and then she moved, with Carol Nickel then she did move to Traditional Home. She wanted to raise her kids in America. So she calls me from Traditional Home, and she's like, can you please send me some locations? All we're getting is not good stuff, like bad McMansions, Taco Bell level, like, please send us. I'm like, okay, as a favor. So I called the two people I remember calling in the late 80s when Home moved.
Right.
So first, the last person I had a meeting with was Michael Smith.
Uh-huh.
A long meeting in his Burton Way studio about a story we were going to cook up about the evolution of decorating from like a college kid all the way through major collections. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to pick up the phone and call Michael. Let's pick up where we left off. That was really hard to get through to him. It was it wasn't an easy process. So that's fine. I'm doing Deborah a favor.
Well, you have determination.
Yes, oh yes, I have no problem. And that's a little acting, and that is true acting training. Because you call as though you own the place.
Right.
Hello, may please.
Right, exactly.
Michael Smith, please. So that didn't go anywhere. Next call, Lynn von Kirsting, please. Because
Yes.
I always loved Indigo Seas. I always saw that she was kind of the inventor here, at
Yes.
least, of that California. Now we don't like to say eclectic, so my replacement word is collected.
Yes.
That collected look of layers. And so I get on the honker, and she gets on the honker, and we end up talking for like 45 minutes.
Well,
she's
fabulous.
asking me about Brazil, and she's like, how about this, darling? She's the original member of the Actors Studio,
Right.
Lee
Oh, yes.
Strasberg. So she has this wonderful theatrical voice. She goes, darling, why don't you just come? And so I'm like, okay. I'm doing a favor for my friend. So I'm still not plussed because I got a job to do. This is a favor for Deborah. She takes me to what I would call a California Giverny.
Yeah.
And I go into the backyard, and I'm like almost in tears scouting this in my
yes.
Jean-Paul Gaultier heels. And because I'm in promo still land.
Right.
And I'm just like, my jaw has not lifted. And I'm like, oh my God, yes, yes, yes. And she showed me a few other projects that I just died over.
Such a great eye.
It's such a great eye. And there's a genuine Proustian,
Yeah.
Marcel Proustian connection there, because her shop always reminded me of my grandparents' house.
Wow. Well, it was such a wonderful mix.
Yes, with the music, with Billie Holiday and the pretzel chairs,
Absolutely.
30s, and there's just such a warm, welcoming,
Absolutely.
soulful feeling there always. So I felt everyone feels that connection, right? And anyway, fast forward, I send them all there, and they take forever. They're not giving me answers. And Oprah wants to run the Giverny place. And finally, they give me an answer. And I say, hi, yeah, Traditional Home wants to run it all. And she goes, shoot, I just gave it to Oprah. And I'm like, and this is what I said to her, because it was the truth from my heart. I said, you know what? It was just an honor to be there. It was an honor to make record of that garden and
Well,
that
now-
Giverny. And you know what she said? She said, do you want me to take it away from Oprah and give it to you? And I paused, because the old me would have said, oh, no, that's okay. And I thought, yeah, I want you to take it away from And so she did. She gave it to me in traditional home, and we were doing 2 shoots at a time, and she held my hand and she said, "We're going to be girlfriends."
Oh, well, that's a fabulous story.
Yeah.
Now, so you've answered my question, I guess,
Yeah.
because as you know, my podcast is called Inspired.
Yes.
So what inspires you in 25 words or less? Because we're running out of time.
Okay, my family, of course, from both ways.
Wonderful.
My
son.
ancestors.
Son and daughter.
Yeah,
Gorgeous.
grandfather, grandmother from Scotland, grandfather the artist, mom the artist, my daughter the strong, fierce
Yes.
artist, my son also an artist and funny.
Superstar.
People that make me laugh, honestly. Lynn, we would cry laughing, and you,
Oh,
truly.
well, thank you.
That bring joy into every project, because I think that's what it's about, right?
That's-
Beauty and joy, and creating that and sharing it with
That's right.
everyone. So there's an Auden quote: "In those whom I like, I can find no common denominator, but in those whom I love, I can. They all make me laugh." And that's Russ. Oh my God, half our marriage is just crying, laughing.
Oh, yes. So
over
important.
stuff.
So important.
So, people, my relationships would be number one. Of course, Mother Nature. That's kind of a cliche, but come on, when
It's
you're
true.
at the mountains looking at the sunset, when you're in the ocean, that's a huge.
Well, you've inspired us all. Thank you. Thank you. We're going to have you back.
Okay,
Maybe
there's
you'll bring Russ.
so many more stories to tell. Thank you.
Thank you so much.